to Community Health. I'm Dr. Eric Smith, your host. I'm a psychologist and licensed professional counselor. Today we're going to talk about ADHD, Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. Our guest is Leo Roisman of Active Behavioral Group. He's a licensed clinical social worker. And we're glad to have you here today, Leo.
Thank you so much for having me, Eric. I just wanted to say that this is an amazing opportunity and a wonderful project to bring mental health awareness to the greater community. I think it's oftentimes a topic that takes a back seat in media, and so this is wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your group, your therapy group.
Sure. So Active Behavioral is a mental health counseling group, and our focus is on treating the individual, families, and really helping the community at large with education, with interventions.
Great. Tell us a little bit about ADHD and maybe what parents can look for in their children.
Sure. So thank you for bringing up children. So ADHD oftentimes is diagnosed at an early age, and this is due to a chemical response in the brain, which sort of causes inattentiveness and hyperactivity versus generally normative brain development. There's a neurotransmitter called dopamine, which has based on brain research, has found that these children with ADHD are lacking, or there's a deficiency of how it's processed, and which really causes dopamine. I guess to backtrack, dopamine is what helps us interact with our environment and get, I guess, pleasure or feeling of even fulfillment from our everyday activities.
So it could be partly genetic or mostly, or it could also be trauma-based and experience?
Certainly. A lot of research does show that early childhood trauma, or genetics based of the reasoning behind why there's this sort of lack. But these kids certainly grow up healthy and wonderful, especially if we really focus on helping them work with and develop with having this deficiency.
What are some treatments that you do in your professional capacity?
Sure. Thank you. So when I meet a family, I begin with working with the parents to start really observing their child, seeing what their everyday routine looks like, what they're doing more of, what they're doing less of, what might be a trigger for losing focus or being hyperactive. Because essentially what happens is because our brain is lacking this dopamine, the kiddo is then searching for more input. So why they're inattentive? Because the input here that we're having is not enough. And so I have input there, I have input there, I have input here from all over. And so I will lose my focus because I am trying to grasp at all these things.
Grounded and connected, or
it's a pleasure seeking, okay. Right? Because when we socialize, when we are active in something, we are getting pleasure. Our dopamine is being fed, in a sense, to our brain from the response to whatever might be happening around us. And so what we're looking for with a child is where can we increase, where can we tweak their daily routine to increase this active response to whatever they're doing.
I bet you see this a lot in schools.
Right. So attention deficit hyperactivity disorder definitely happens, the symptoms really of inattention and losing focus in a classroom because a kiddo needs just a lot more input. And so what teachers do, educators do, they might be more animated. They might be more effective in helping kiddos be more to the front of the class, so there's less distractions for them. So they're really only focusing around what the teacher might be doing. But it's still very difficult without looking at all the other routines, because the teacher has 30 kids. Parents, right, they have their kiddos, and so they can really hyper-focus on what they're doing and why they might be losing attention and focus.
I bet for parents and teachers alike, disobedience might be a side effect?
Sure. Oftentimes we see that, there's another diagnosis like oppositional defiant disorder, where kids will just say no or get aggressive. But it's really reaction seeking a lot of times, where they're looking for just more input. So your reaction is the input they're looking for. So if we give them less reaction to some of the things that they're misbehaving with, they might be less likely to do it, which is kind of like, an aha moment sometimes for parents to see that, if I give you more attention for the positive, for the great things you're doing, you'll do more of it, because you're getting the stimuli that I'm sending to you.
Do they appear to be like sad children?
Well, that's interesting. An interesting question. At first, right, the first few formative years, we don't really see depression. It really does come about. I should preface it with, in social situations, we might be bouncing off the walls, and the kiddos next to us might not want us to, and so they'll kind of back away. Maybe those first few social interactions might be a little bit like, what's going on here? I don't know why you're not jumping off the walls with me. But kiddos do love jumping off the walls,
yes.
So it's not as much of a problem. But when it becomes later in teenage years, there's a lot of research behind that kiddos with ADHD do have less social relationships, and that does cause more of depression. Certainly academically, if you're not doing well because you can't focus on your work, you're getting bad grades. These are all negative feelings that you will then start sticking in your head, saying, "Oh my God, I'm doing bad," or why can't I be friends with Timmy?
They don't know how to make friends necessarily.
Right, possibly. But these can be learned. That's the thing. So if we really start young, if we really start developmentally around age 3, even younger, to really help them maneuver around what is happening in them and how they interact with the environment, with the world, we can really help them either learn tools by showing them those tools, or we can really guide them in their everyday routine and structure, which will help them really hyper-focus on certain things that are happening.
Are they overly aggressive?
Aggression isn't necessarily a symptom. There's certainly sometimes we can see that, but again, it's really seeking more. If we can find a way that they can have a structured experience in their life, I should say, let me backtrack, is a big thing for kiddos with ADHD that will help them even remodel some of this lack of dopamine to better dopamine processing, is exercise, is sports. What research has found, kiddos, of course, when they're active, when they're doing something, right? So they're receiving this external pleasure of doing something, and internal as well, based on their chemistry. They are really remodeling some of those neurotransmitters in their brain. This is really amazing thing to really just get your kids into some sort of sport and really practice with them daily.
Yes.
Will help them really focus on this thing, get what they're looking or lacking of, right? Looking for or lacking of, and really start to remodel.
In therapy, I've heard that play therapy is sometimes used. How does that look like when you're doing play therapy?
So the reason we use play therapy with kiddos is on an individual basis is because a lot of learning between the formative years 3 to 7 or so really come about through playing, through practicing what I see in the environment in my play. And just getting on the ground with your kiddo, getting on the floor and just engaging with them. Why is, the ducky doing this? Why is the car doing that? Helps them sort of explore why things are happening. And there we can really use some tools. These are some of the tools that I will teach parents. We use positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, essentially to bring about the actions they can do within their environment, and they can use those, learn those, and then bring them into other experiences that they have.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
I imagine the child is confused by why he's not connecting with others, and
Right.
you have to kind of bring him to the awareness that it's his work that he has to do to adjust.
Right. We can't just tell a kiddo, right, because that's not how they're learning. So we have to just show and play, perhaps, of why that might not be effective. And this is where negative reinforcement comes in, or silencing. We can, if they're looking for a reaction from us, we don't react. And then they don't get what they're looking for. They don't get the reaction. So their need for this more doesn't get fed. So they don't do it. They just, do something else that does get a reaction from us. And our reaction is positive, right? We love when you're doing it this way. Wow, what a great job. We have to use other terms, depending on the kiddo, whatever makes them feel good about themselves. That smile, that's what we know. Okay, effective, this works.
Good.
Let's keep doing it.
So good. You seem so confident that between the science, maybe the medicine and the therapy, that there's progress to be made for any individual child.
There really is. The formative years that's what it is. It's formative. Brain is still developing. We still have opportunity, chance to really work on that. Later years, it's a little bit harder, but it's still doable. But as doing play therapy, that is, our focus then. You mentioned medications, so it's a great foray into that. Medications are generally for kiddos with ADHD are, I guess, amphetamine based. They are upping our dopamine levels, right? To get to that normative way, so that really increases our focus. With a normative brain, if we have 5 cups of coffee, we are anxious, we are buzzed. But for kiddos that are lacking, kids that have ADHD, for them, it actually helps them increase their focus, and they stay on one topic for much longer because whatever's lacking is not there, and so they're able to focus. I certainly seen medication work miracles, but it's not the only step, because essentially we do want them, kiddos, to learn how to deal with this, how to experience the world, knowing that they do have something lacking.
So even though it might worry parents, the word amphetamines, and that it's
Sure.
counterintuitive, you think your kid's amped up, but why give? This is a prudent way to, along with therapy, to treat the child.
Certainly. But again, I wholly believe, and I've seen it as well, especially with parents who are like, I just don't want medications. There's a lot of people who I don't want anything like that. Seeing that these interventions certainly take much longer than medicine to work, but they do, and they really help a lot more to long-term progress of the child.
Does this follow children into adulthood, ADHD?
Yeah, there's ADHD will be with you for your whole life, because it's brain development, right? And your brain, unless it's changing, unless it's growing, unless you're adapting, unless you're learning structure and see for yourself, right? I guess as adults, it's a lot easier for us to kind of sit with ourselves and say, this is not effective. What do I have to do? And so then in treatment with adults, we come up with good plans. We come up with good structures that might help them move past whatever it is that's holding them back.
So there really is a responsibility for everybody else involved, the school, society, teachers, parents, to provide what you're calling the structure that
Right.
reflects back to the child a sensible course of progressing with what they need to get their needs met and their feelings elevated.
Right. You got it.
Good. Well,
This is wonderful.
yeah, it's interesting. And it's important. It's kind of like it grew in understanding in society the last 30, 40 years of this ADHD.
I mean, I really think it's because of brain development and really development of psychology as a system to kind of look at why we do the things we do. And finding some answers that really helped us understand, and then moving into what we can do and what treatments work and don't work.
Okay, what's the relationship between you as a licensed clinical social worker
Yes.
and perhaps the MD in the family, the psychiatrist? What are their roles?
So, great question. Really, anyone can see, right? Any one of these, even a teacher in a classroom can see a kiddo having inattention and losing focus. A psychiatrist, a pediatrician can prescribe medication. Certainly, a psychiatrist can even go to the step of past providing medication, can really do some counseling as well with families or the kiddos themselves. But I think it's LPCs or psychologists or clinical social workers that are really their focus is on the individual treatment, on the family, what we can do with families, and how that affects globally. Whereas I think where the medication might be lacking or looking at medication.
So there's really no substitute in a sense for getting to know the individual child, what makes them tick, and kind of getting a bond with them as a therapist.
Yeah, I think there's some, but I think it's limited.
Okay.
I really do think it's limited. I think when it gets into the clinical treatment and not medication treatment arena, I think we're asked to do more, to really effectively not just control the chemical imbalance, but look at how the child is, how the family is, how the communal relationship is with this child, like in school or
Exactly. You can sometimes go into the home and into the school to do the therapy.
Right. We can go wherever the child goes, wherever we're permitted to go, of course, and that gives us, if we have a practice space, we can certainly have the space to work with a child, on the floor with toys or what have you.
What are you looking for an understanding from the community, from society in general?
That is a great question, which I didn't prepare for, but I will answer because I love it. What I'm looking for is just more education, more understanding. My foray into parenting started in 2005, where it was trial and error. And, as a lot of parents, first-time parents, I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, all right, feed it, clothe it. I think that's it, right? So I really think a better understanding of child development, of why there's lacking in this or lacking in that, or what a child might need and not be able to tell us, really, right?
It sounds like parents and teachers could maybe overreact and get too disciplinarian with this.
Yeah, I mean, that's a sort of harder topic, because I think we learn how to parent from parents. Our parents. And so when it becomes disciplinary and things like this, I wouldn't say it's better or worse, right? I would say it's, what is it doing? Is it helping or is it hurting, and where and how? If we see that a child's reaction and a child's progress is stymied by overly disciplining or overly under-disciplining, we kind of fall into sort of a trap, because we think we're doing the right thing, but certainly we see that the child is not vibing with this, and we have to really, on an individual basis, see what this. That's why investigation is the first thing. We really want to see this environment and where the lack is, and then we try to tweak it, right?
What are some things you might notice as the child improves? Will he be more polite? Will he be more happy? Will he be more what?
I think on a social and academic, certainly on a social and academic, I mean, kids are generally happy. They love being happy. So if we can keep them happy and engaged in what the world has to offer, the beautiful things the world has to offer, that's what we really want to focus on.
That's great. Well, I appreciate your wisdom and your education on this. Yeah, and it was very good.
Thank you.
And if they can contact either one of us or are on the right for questions on the show, if they have questions on ADHD and anything related to mental health. Thank you for joining us with Community Health, and we will be back for another show.